Frequency Matters, the RF and microwave update. I'm Pat Hindle, and I'm here with my co-host Gary Lerude. In this episode, we're going to take a look at our March test and measurement issue, which is always a very popular issue every year. And so for the cover story this year, we decided to look at turnkey, complete modeling and measurement systems. So it includes hardware, software, all the cables and connectors for a complete measurement and modeling system. Up until recently, you couldn't really buy this. You had to buy all these components. You had to worry about the software. You had to worry about the calibration, the cabling. Very complicated to set up a complete system, but now the turnkey systems are available. So we asked Keysight Technologies, National Instruments, Maury Microwave, and Focus Microwaves to kind of let us know what are the unique things about their systems and what the advantages are of these complete turnkey systems. So those are all outlined in the March cover story.
That's a real trend that's taking place in the industry now, and it's great for the people that have to use the equipment.
Yeah, it's a big time saver for sure.
Yeah.
How about the technical features?
Well, we have a couple technical features. We have an application note from Maury Microwave. You may remember, I think it was the December issue, they did a feature on basically single sideband IQ mixers. Well, the key fundamental piece of a mixer like that is getting a quadrature phase shift. So in this article, kind of a part two, they talk about the different ways of getting quadrature phase shift, the bandwidth, and so forth. And then they also talk about how do you compensate for errors, because none of these techniques is perfect.
Right.
Then we have a second article that's on solving digitizer setup problems. This is by Spectrum. And certainly in many of our systems now, we're basically converting to digital at the end. And so knowing how to do that and use a digitizer is important. So those are a couple of our technical features this month.
Great. And then on the product feature side, Keysight had their new SIPI Pro software release, so that's signal integrity and power integrity simulation software. And Anritsu had their release of their E-band version of their Shockline VNAs. We had Peregrine with their phase and amplitude controllers, which are helping Doherty designers. And lastly, we had the Pico released some new pulse generators. So 4 good product features there.
Right.
How about the tech briefs?
Tech briefs on the test and measurement theme. We have Holsworth with an RF synthesizer. It's the first of a family that they're developing. This one covers 10 megahertz to 6 gigahertz with a pretty wide output power dynamic range from minus 110 dBm up to plus 20 dBm. And of course, it's got low phase noise. The second one is from Stanford Research. This is kind of along the lines of digital type systems, a clock generator that basically goes from DC or very, very low frequency up to about 2 gigahertz. And it has very low jitter, less than 1 picosecond RMS. So again, a couple of tech briefs for test and measurement.
Yeah, so it's a good issue, a lot going on in it. Turning to the news, I saw that the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, they specify the IMT standards. So they met for the first time since the World Radio Communication Conference was last year. And their job was to specify and further develop the IMT 2020, which will become the 5G standard.
Right.
And so they're looking at the frequencies to harmonize them below 6 gigahertz and then do studies above 6 gigahertz. And the results of those studies will be presented at the radio conference when it's in 2019. And I have to say, this just seems way too slow for me. I mean, 5G is just progressing at a very quick pace. You saw it at Mobile World Congress. I mean, people are doing millimeter wave prototyping now. And for them to wait until 2019 just seems way too late for me.
Right.
What's your impression?
Well, the standards are chasing what's actually being done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about Mobile World Congress. I do want to mention, I think the curtain has finally come down on the Anadigix auction.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, we heard a news release this week that 26, the company that had an agreement with them, apparently has prevailed now. They were bidding back and forth with this Chinese bidder, and they finally matched the Chinese bidder's price of 85 cents a share. And they also offered a working capital loan because Anadigix has been in this limbo state, and so their cash is really being depleted. And the fact that they're an American company, a domestic company, means that the deal doesn't have to get approved by the U.S. government, other than antitrust, which is fairly straightforward.
Right.
So I think it's done now. So
you don't think the Chinese bidder will come back at a higher price?
Well, the board basically said the auction was done. They couldn't go on any further beyond March 1st because otherwise the company would essentially be depleted totally.
Right.
So we'll see.
So how about Mobile World Congress?
Okay, so Mobile World Congress, it's an amazing event. As you know, you were there last year. You have like 100,000 people descending on Barcelona.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. The big mobile phone announcement was from Samsung. They announced their Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge. But most of the interest, I think, was in 5G.
Of course, yeah.
And what I'm calling the fraternal twin, the Internet of Things. They both kind of seem to go together. The thing that I found most interesting was I had the opportunity to tour the Ericsson booth. I say booth lightly because it was like a city block, but they had a very interesting 5G demo set up. So they basically have about 800 megahertz of spectrum at 15 gigahertz in Sweden, which is where they did this initial prototype. They took basically that bandwidth and they created an 8x8 array for the transceiver. And they, in the demo at Mobile World Congress, basically had 3 of these transceivers, one acting like a base station, and then 2 that they called the UE, the user equipment. Right. And so one of them was fixed, and then one was on a sliding track. And we have a fixed photo that people can see that kind of gives a sense of what they looked like. And so the demo basically proceeded. This one unit would slide back and forth, and you could see on a screen on the wall the combined data rate from the 2 UEs back to the base station. And it was consistently between 20 and 25 gigabit per second,
wow.
Except when the one unit went close to the other one where they didn't have the spatial diversity.
Right.
And then it dropped down, but it was still like 15 gigabit per second.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it was a pretty interesting demo. It made you feel like, yeah, there's some reality here to 5G. And now the companies, of course, in addition to Ericsson, Nokia is doing similar things. They're now converting these lab prototypes to actual hardware that can go out in the field. And in the case of Ericsson, they're moving to 28 gigahertz, which seems to be a common spectrum that they're going to try in the US, Japan, Korea, and so forth.
Right.
So it was quite an interesting event. So it's worth going, definitely.
Definitely.
So do we have any other news to report today?
No more on the news, but I wanted to move on to events.
Yes.
EDICon China announced that Eli Bruckner, who's a very famous guru in the radar industry, he used to work for Raytheon, he'll be giving a short course on scanned arrays and MIMO radar systems at EDICon China. And he'll also be the keynote speaker at the Chinese Radar Industry Association conference. So I think China this year for EDICon is going to be huge. We have an EMC conference co-locating, the radar conference
Right.
co-location, Eli Bruckner speaking, there's a lot of radar and signal integrity. We have a whole track on amplifier design, and we added a new track this year on silicon on insulator technology, so there's a whole day on that. So I really think there's a lot of going on in the design area, measurement and modeling that's really going to make the event take off.
Right, and phased arrays used to be sort of the purview of defense, but now with all the commercial interest, particularly for 5G,
yes.
I bet Eli's course will have a lot of people attending.
Right. How about anything in the future for you in the travel area?
Well, I'm home for a while, but I think you're heading to Washington, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to the satellite show and coming up real soon, and I hope to check out, I love the nano satellite technology, see how that's going. The movement to Ka band with the systems there, and a lot of the GaN technology making it into the transmitter end. So it'll be good to check that out.
Yeah, I was there last year, and there's a lot of news, a lot of things taking place, so it'll be good for you to catch up on that. Well, I think that probably takes care of this episode. We want to thank our sponsor, Mini Circuits, for making it possible. You can find out all about their products if you go to their website, minicircuits.com. And thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us on the next episode.